Okay. So with that, we'll call the town of Somerville Planning Commission for December 20th, 2021 to order. First order of business be the approval of minutes from our meeting of November the 15th. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes for those?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Approval of minutes from our special meeting on December 1st of 2021. Any additions or corrections to those? Hearing none, they'll stand approved as presented. Next order of business and public hearing. The first is a petition by Southpointe Ventures, a South Carolina general partnership to annex Dorchester County, TMS number 13800000015, approximately 15.7 acres, located at Southpointe Boulevard and East 5th North Street. Currently zoned TRM, Transitional Residential District in Dorchester County. Will be zoned MFR, multifamily residential, upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This is in Council District 2. Is the petitioner here? You want to present this?
Good evening. My name is Josh Lilly. I'm with Stantec, civil engineer representing the potential developer for this project. Thanks for hearing our case today. As you know, this is a piece of property located at the entrance to Southpointe development. About 15.7 acres, like you mentioned. Of that 15.7, about roughly 10 acres is usable. The rest is non-jurisdictional wetlands. That's about 30% of the property that would remain undeveloped. Current developer right now is looking at doing townhomes out here. If you guys may remember, a year and a half ago, Petition came up on the same piece of property to try to do apartments. That application was pulled, and we're now looking back at it for some townhomes, give or take about 90 townhomes. As you mentioned, the piece of property is currently in Dorchester County, zoned TRM, with the allowable uses in that current zone as agricultural, single-family residential, manufactured housing, utilities, community services, and open space. Traffic study will be required for this project once we get annexation and the process moving forward. We would do that through this county's or the town's process. I can tell you that based on the traffic study that was done previously for the apartment complex, the only improvements that would be required are going to be a turn lane into Southpointe development, which is already kind of under development. That turn lane was required for some of the housing in the back of the property or back of the project. That turn lane is ongoing. The stipulation in the TIA states that once that turn lane is built, there are no other improvements for that development. Again, that was for the apartment complex with many more units. So I imagine that when we redo that again the second time for the townhomes, it'll be similar. Stormwater development and trees will comply with ordinances in the town. Once we get annexed in, we'll completely do our due diligence and go through the process with the town to comply with this town's stormwater ordinance and the town's tree ordinance. This site is per the comprehension plan. It's within neighborhood mixed designation, which has allowable residential uses as townhomes, row housing, duplexes, and single family. That district also has some commercial and retail pieces to it, but we're focusing on residential. So townhomes is something that's called up for and is allowed in the neighborhood mixed designation. We're requesting annexation MFR, as you stated. That does allow for apartments. This developer is not intending on doing apartments. So if you see fit to approve us moving forward with the NR zoning, which does not allow apartments, that would be something that we'd be okay with. Again, we're just looking at some townhomes. And the NR district does match the zoning to the west and across the street. In conclusion, I think the annexation and the zoning complies with the comprehensive plan that you guys put forth and have adopted. Townhomes fits in the general character of the land. 30% of the parcel is going to remain wooded because of the non-jurisdictional wetlands that we're going to try to avoid. Again, we thank you for hearing our case, and we hope to look forward to moving forward. Thank you very much.
Great. Who else would like to speak to this?
And I wrote some things down. I sent a letter earlier today, an email, which was broader, but I think a lot of people are going to talk about similar things. So I had just a few quick things that I wanted to ask or to mention. The first thing is, we were given a paper in the neighborhood about a financial study that was done that showed that the town of Somerville would actually lose a good bit of money on this project because of services that needed to be supplied over 20 years. And it kind of seems to me, if you know, I had a business for a while, a private practice, and if something up front was going to lose me money for 20 years, I wouldn't even look at it any part. But obviously that's not the case. So I had concerns, and the man before me said some things about wetlands not being bothered. But if this got annexed and changed zoning, is there a body that would make sure that those wetlands are protected? I did some research today, and there is no real clear rule in South Carolina. They defer to the Federal Clean Water Act, and there are lots and lots of rules with that, and endangered species and plants. And I'm just not sure that once this goes through that, you know, I don't know how you get a guarantee about that, I guess. And I'm just raising that as a question. Everybody's going to talk about traffic. As a physician, one of the concerns I have is the length of time that it would take EMS to get to people in our neighborhood during rush hour. And I don't know if anybody's looked at that and how long it takes now, but with all the developing that's going on and the infrastructure that has not kept up with that, 78, as you all know, is a 2-lane highway. And it was my understanding that the builder was supposed to have built a turn lane prior to starting the current project that's going on in the back of the neighborhood. So I'm not real sure how to know that that's going to happen or when it's going to happen. But if you have a heart attack or an asthma attack or anaphylaxis or stroke, minutes make a huge difference. And, you know, I think that's an issue. And the last thing that I wanted to say is I don't mean any disrespect by this at all. But as a psychiatrist, you know, I've dealt over the years a lot with groups of people, group therapy, group dynamics. And I understand, Mr. Mayor, that you have recused yourself from voting because your family has some interest in this. Again, you know, I mean no disrespect, but I would ask that the members of council in their own heads think about the fact that authority figures influence the way we think. And, you know, it's just a fact. I mean, that's why lawyers won't let doctors and priests and other people in authority positions be on juries because they worry that the jury will be swayed in some way. And that can be very subtle. And I don't in any way mean that anybody's doing anything deliberately or that there's anything bad going on, but it's just human nature. And so I would just ask the members who are voting on this to make sure that you're voting what your constituents want, and just just kind of think about that. And that's really all I have.
Thank you. I will point out that I'm not Ricky.
We are not, tell her we're not counseling.
Yeah.
Doesn't rest with us.
This is the planning commission where this is not town council. Yeah. I would also ask that in order to keep this to the point, that please refrain from repeating what the other folks are going to say. We want to hear everybody and we want to hear about everything, but we don't want to hear it multiple times if we can avoid it. So, sir.
Thank you. I overlapped the last one in a small part. My name is Tom Clark. I live at 308 Minden Hall Street in Southpointe, and I've been there just 11 years. I rise to oppose this subject annexation. There are many points to be made for and against proposed annexation. I choose to address one of them. Financially, who would benefit from this and who would lose? This is not a win-win situation. It is a gain or gain more for the seller of Southpointe Ventures. It is status quo or lose value for the residents of Southpointe and added expense for the town of Somerville. Who would benefit? Property owner, as currently zoned, has a likely highest use value estimated at $750,000 or around $50,000 an acre. Annexation of Somerville and rezoning to multifamily would elevate that to at least $2.5 million for the seller, or nearly $2 million increase. I submit the property is now properly zoned in Dorchester County as TRM, and this is an effort to evade their zoning plan policy, which generally says you may not place high-density housing in front of an established single-family subdivision. It's a policy throughout Dorchester County. And it would certainly apply to this property. The property buyer has an opportunity to have a profitable project that would make their investment, if enough units are built, profitable, if all units can be sold or rented. They stated that anything less than 92 units on both sides of the boulevard is not cost effective. But they cannot scale back. The property owners of Southpointe and the Southpointe Estates, as well as the town of Somerville, will lose. The curb appeal of the nearly 400 homes accessed via Southpointe Boulevard will be diminished and likely suffer at least a $10,000 average 3% loss on property sale value of each residence. Collectively, for Southpointe owners, that will be a total of around $4 million. The curb appeal mentioned is touted even by Dan Ryan's marketing brochures for Southpointe Estates, which is part of us, which they say in part, this charming neighborhood has a secluded field tucked in behind a tree-lined boulevard, thus recognizing the curb appeal of the boulevard, which will be destroyed if proposed annexation and inevitable construction occurred. Another loser is the town of Somerville. By using the town's 20-year fiscal impact analysis spreadsheet, one can see taxes and revenues from the new units will not cover the cost of providing city services, such as trash pickup, fire, police, and other city services routinely provided to all residents. Assuming 92 owner-occupied units and 3 residents per unit, the town will collect about $117,000 less each year than they would collect in fees and taxes. Extended over a 20-year period, this is about $2.5 million the city of Somerville would contribute to this project. If the residential density were higher than 3, this loss figure would likely grow since it's based on a head count. And with likely 3 and 4 bedroom townhomes being built, I think that the average of 3 occupants is probably low. I submit that everyone Area residents and the town of Somerville would lose. Except for the seller and developer. Their gains would be at our collective loss. Please reject the opposed annexation. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission members. I'm Ron Bullman. I'm with Dan Ryan Builders. So we'd be the end user for this particular project. Appreciate you guys listening to us tonight and considering our annexation and rezoning request. Happy to stand up here and answer any questions you guys might have for us about product, potential uses. Also am happy to come back after everybody's spoken and had other questions and happy to answer those. We watched this project about a year ago, as you guys well know, it didn't get denied, but it did effectively get denied for apartments. Through that process, we heard a lot of people say that they would prefer townhomes on the community in that particular parcel. That's what we're trying to do here tonight. We can talk about trees and wetlands and drainage and traffic if you'd like. I think it's a little early in that process. We've spoken to town staff, engineering, and they're obviously going to hold our feet to the fire as it relates to any of that stuff. So I think it's a little early in the process. We don't have a plan that is far enough along that allows us to speak intelligently about it, but happy to talk about it nonetheless. In terms of the financial statement, I put that together, that analysis myself with the help of town staff. I do think it's a flawed process, a flawed calculation. If you use that same Excel spreadsheet that we have there, in order for any of those units to be at least financially neutral, it would have to have an appraised value of $650,000. To put that in perspective, over the last 3 years, there's been a little over 15,000 real estate transactions in town of Somerville. 97 of those were over $650,000. So by that math, 99.4% of all the real estate transactions in town of Somerville are now in a deficit. So I do think that there needs to be a little more looked into as it relates to that financial statement. We do think that this fits very well with the community. It would be our intent to have fit and finish that match exactly or as close as possible to the single family homes that we're building in the back of Southpointe Estates today. We do think that it fits well with the zoning and the growth corridor of Highway 78. We are, to answer the question about the turn lane, we are on the hook to put a turn lane in. We have been trying desperately for the last 2 years to put that in. We did not have the right of way acquired at the time that we got our permit. There's a church there on Highway 78 that has held out and held out and held out. We are on the 1 yard line with them on a contract to get that signed, right away acquired, our DOT permit released. As soon as the DOT permit is released, we will start construction. Trust me when I say we want that turn lane to go in as much as the town of Somerville does and the residents, obviously.
Nobody wants. It'll exacerbate our current problem. Excuse me, sir. Sorry.
Well, we would love to not pay for a turn lane if nobody wants the turn lane. It's a very expensive. The community does need it. The traffic impact analysis, I think, for the apartment site verified that. Happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
Maybe when we get into the discussion.
I'll sit off to the side and come back.
Hello, Commission. I'm David Willison. I've been a resident of Southpointe for over 10 years. Although I might not have a civil engineering degree, I have a mechanical and electrical engineering degree. And I agree with what all my neighbors said. And I also want to state that personally, what I've seen Dan Ryan do, behind my home on Mendenhall Street and the exasperated flooding that I now have that I didn't before, I could see that my new neighbors will experience the same flooding. And I think before we start allowing buildings to be built in neighborhoods, we really got to stop, take moratorium and say, what can we do to fix the flooding? I mean, the roads I know are part of the county, part of the state, but what can we do to fix the flooding in our existing neighborhoods? And I think that's what my main goal here is. Hey, let's stop the flooding and help the current residents before we allow new building and construction.
Hi, I'm Christy Pitchford, and just so y'all know, I get nervous in front of people, even though I'm a teacher, and you'd think I wouldn't. So I'll probably blabber a little bit. So I wrote notes just to help. Anyway, I have been living in Southpointe for almost 16 years. I actually bought the house for my mom. She bought it because it was a charming neighborhood. I was born and raised in Somerville, and one of the things I've always loved about my hometown is that it is a charming neighborhood. My husband, we were driving in before we found out about all this not long ago, and he's like, you know what I love about our neighborhood is that like we have this awesome boulevard that you can drive in, and it's tree lined and it's quiet and it's not overflowing with stuff like all these other neighborhoods. You don't see a big pool to the side, you don't see all this stuff. He's like, I just like that it's calming to come into our neighborhood. So needless to say, we were a little upset when we found out about this, and when we found out about the apartment proposal, just it will ruin the charmingness. And to be honest, that's one of the things I've always loved about my hometown is just it is charming. And the more that it grows, it seems to be losing it. So the thought of losing it in the one neighborhood I managed to keep it in. Some of the things I'm concerned about, I have a son who plays soccer. We have a field at the front of the neighborhood. He plays there. Y'all probably see the little redhead boy all the time. I'm already a little nervous just from all the other neighborhoods growing and the apartments across the street, the ones that are supposed to be put in down the road, about his safety and just more traffic being there and the thought of him getting snatched. Obviously I stay with him, but at the same time, if I've got to run somewhere, I get scared. I'll let other people talk about the traffic. It's a lot. As far as I do want to kind of address what he said that everybody said that they were okay with townhouses. Overwhelmingly, I've been to all the meetings where we've talked about this. Nobody's okay with townhomes or apartments. The only thing we are accepting of is houses, single family houses. And one of the main reasons is, like was mentioned before, the flooding. I have a minivan, which is not low riding, and it doesn't even have to be a major downpour to the point now where I can't get into the neighborhood. I had to come and have my husband come pick me up in his big old lifted truck and park my van until it stopped flooding not long ago. That never happened before the neighborhood in the back was built. The flooding just on the boulevard, that's our only entrance. It's our only exit. So if we add more, it's going to get worse and people won't be able to get in and out. My son drives a little hatchback. My daughter drives a Toyota Camry. They won't be able to come in and out of the neighborhood if it rains at all. The other thing I wanted to mention is the schools and the impact it would have on the schools. Like I said, I'm a teacher. I teach high school. Our schools are already over capacity. They're overflowing. Our classes are completely overfilled, overcrowded. I know it's partially because of COVID, but every year we're seeing more discipline issues. We're out of classrooms. We have teachers that have to leave their classrooms over planning so that other teachers can come and teach because we have too many kids we don't have enough schools. And I know Dorchester County, Berkeley County, they don't have the money to start building schools fast enough to keep up with the kids. And if you're talking about 3 and 4 bedroom townhomes, those people are going to bring kids. Whether we want to accept it or not, we've got to teach them. And just at my school alone right now, we don't have enough classrooms. We're down 15 teachers because nobody wants to teach. Where are we going to put these people? So I wanted to just talk about my issues. I know they're a little bit different, but I guess that's it.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hirsch, and I live in Dovewood 1 of Southpointe. I've been here since 2008, raised both my boys here in Somerville. One of them sitting right there, Ethan. We have multiple concerns as well. It is a nice neighborhood, great neighborhood. Love this town. I specifically moved here because I came from a small town that grew too fast. And I saw what happened, and I had to move away because it was no longer my small town. I mean, my town, we rode horses through the town, literally. We had like one McDonald's, one grocery store kind of town. And it's very sad to see that leaving. And I know growth has got to happen, but I think the town of Somerville is growing too fast and we need to get the infrastructure in. We've mentioned the traffic in our neighborhood. Getting in and out is very dangerous. The reason why we are not for the turn lane is because often the only way we can get out of our neighborhood is if someone stops to turn into our neighborhood and they actually stop traffic for us. Otherwise, we're there. For me to get to Somerville, for a lot of us to get to Somerville, I actually turn left out of Southpointe and I go through Lincolnville because I can't turn right and get through Berlin G. That I sit there because it's just that far backed up. So at this point, I think, adding more multifamily is reckless. We're again, infrastructure. We don't have the roads in place. We just simply don't. That is an evacuation route. God forbid something happens, Southpointe residents are stuck in there. I guess we'll get out, kayaks if somebody has them, or our boats. Because again, it's mentioned, we can't get in and out of the neighborhood due to flooding. And I'm not talking inches, I'm talking feet now, feet. Now, this is what our school buses go through. We have 2 counties in Southpointe. We have Berkeley County and Dorchester County schools are in Southpointe. Those school buses are having to drive through flooded waters and picking up our kids who are standing in flooded waters. It's too much. So let me think what else I wanted to say. Standing on tippy toes. Mentioned that. Oh, sewage treatment. So a lot of things have to happen as well. Now, people don't usually think of this, and the only reason I think of this is because I did an internship with an environmental department. A lot of times when it rains, sewage treatment plants can't keep up and it starts dumping sewage into the rivers. And I'm wondering if that's what's happening. The reason I say this is because when we have a good rainstorm, even the Sawmill branch is up to capacity. In general, in Somerville, I kind of feel like we can't handle any more building until we start to figure out our flooding issues. And that's everywhere in Somerville. Environmental, we have those grand trees, they drink water. And I mentioned this to Mr. Jenkins when I spoke to him. Asphalt doesn't take up any water. It does not drink water. It's trees, it's plants, and even in the town, we have a little placard by the tree that says, this tree drinks such and such amount. It's true. It's true. The trees will drink the water and we need the trees. Dan, I don't know, I missed his name, but the man representing Dan Ryan said that, the trees, they'll comply with whatever. I mean, I don't know what the agreement was with the estates in the back of the neighborhood, but it seems to me that they got rid of every tree they could. I don't see too many trees left standing back there. And I do hear a lot of traffic and noise. And I mean, having 2 kids that now drive, it's nerve-wracking. I'm sitting in my backyard and I hear every siren, every ambulance, everything going on in traffic-wise in Somerville. So, I mean, that's another concern. The trees that we need to keep, this is supposed to be a tree town. What happened? Is it only a tree town if you're a resident? Or does that not apply to builders? Also, the financial impact. Who is going to pay for that? I would suspect it will be the residents of Somerville, not just Southpointe, but all of us. In other neighborhoods, our taxes are all going to go up. And who's going to benefit? Dan Ryan or whatever builder, and they'll leave and we'll be dealing with the infrastructure issues because eventually they'll, I guess, widen roads. But we'll be trying to get in and out of our neighborhood. Meanwhile, we'll be dealing with the cost. We'll be dealing with finding police, finding fire, finding trash collectors. And believe me, I work in a hospital. Nobody wants to work in any profession anymore. I don't know any industry that has an abundance of employees. Nobody can find people to work. And I'd love to know how they're making it and feeding their kids and their families, but that's just a fact right now. We don't have people that work. So I think all of these issues need to be addressed before we add any more multifamily. And I'm terrified that they're going to put those apartments on the other side as well at Berlin-G. I may have to go to, like I did Saturday, I went to North Charleston to do my Christmas shopping because I knew I wouldn't be able to get into Somerville. And I really think that's sad. I don't want to go to North Charleston to shop. I'd rather keep my money in Somerville. But anyway, I did write a letter and it was kind of more fluid than what I just said here, but I was, again, trying not to eat too much. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Richardson. I have lived in Southpointe for 21 years. Bought my house, plan on living there until I can no longer get in and out of the house myself. So you guys have gotten the packet that I wrote up. So you've heard most of what I have to say and the backup that I have in there. So the packet that you, little small, short packet that you got. I want to say I appreciate you guys and what you do. I want to start off by saying I know this is not a job for you guys, that you do it for the betterment of our town, and it's not an easy job. Often thankless for what you guys have to go through and listen through from the citizens. So we do appreciate that you guys are taking your time to do it and hear us out. We were pretty happy last time with the apartments. You guys took the time. You were ready to read the packet. You were ready to sit down for another marathon meeting. And we got lucky that the builder withdrew. We feel the same way again. You know, this is still, I'm not going to go back through everything else. You see pictures in there of the flooding. So you can now get the visual image. It is out of my window that one where my neighbor has 2 to 3 feet of water in his backyard for hours and hours and hours after it rains, like all day after it rains. And my side yard, like it's up to my knees, that stays there, which was not there until they built the houses behind us. So while I appreciate that, you know, Mr. Bowman is willing to say, you know, we'll do what it needs, we got the same story when Southpointe Estates was put in, and we're flooding often. So this, we're going to do what needs to be done isn't often what should be done. And sometimes there's nothing you can do. The wetlands, sections of wetlands that were preserved behind us, which is what our natural water flow of our neighborhood is the wetlands, and it's to go in the areas around us. Even though that one section is preserved, it is completely encompassed with residential construction. So those wetlands don't have a drain path that comes from our neighborhood anymore. So instead of draining out, it all drains back into us. I have videos of the water coming from them into our yards. And it makes a river of our streets. The school bus is trying to get through. And I had a picture of a school bus actually trying to get through in front of my house there where the roads flood. And that's after it had drained out some. So while we appreciate that there has to be growth in the town, it needs to be a controlled growth. It needs to be with the right infrastructure behind it. And putting more at that structure in that area of Southpointe and the area of 78. Right now, it's 7 years before we even think of that road being widened. And that's if the whole corridor project just stays on time. How often does a big road structure project stay on time? Not very often. 7 years, 2029, before they even will have the chance to have that road widened for us, which still isn't going to account for the fact that we will lose what is one of the biggest appeals of our neighborhood. You turn into our neighborhood and it used to be quiet. Used to couldn't even tell we were that close to town, which we loved. It's one of the big appeals of our neighborhood. But if you tear down those woods on both sides of it, we're just driving straight through the middle rest of town. It's no longer the neighborhood that we've had. And there's a lot of residents back there. But it also affects the neighborhoods on both sides of us. The traffic backs up to our neighborhood. And this not during Christmas. Christmas is even worse. Like I don't even go uptown anymore. I can see Lowe's from down the power line from my house, but it would take me 25 minutes to drive up there. I do not go on a Saturday or Sunday. You can forget it. We will sit through about 18 lights to even get to Berlin-G. And I know people have talked about traffic and you said not to, but it's huge. It is a big problem on 78. Yes, it's going to be widened. The turn lanes, again, it's going to make it worse for us because right now we can't get out. So I don't like to leave my house. I leave for work, and that's when I travel out of town. Otherwise, I work from home. I don't go uptown. What I call uptown being the interstate part, not the downtown part of it. We call it uptown. You just can't get up there anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous. But besides all that, the flooding, the traffic, the schools, the trees, you see some pictures of some trees that are back in there. There's some huge grand trees back in there that are just gorgeous. That, you know, yes, they're in the middle of woods, but they're still, I mean, I estimate, I did a little bit of research. I'm not an arborist, but you know, my dad and I, this is my dad, he lives in the neighborhood too. We have, I don't know, I think we had 45 families with multi-generational housing in there between the 3 or 4 neighborhoods because it's such a great area. Somerville is a great area. I've lived here my entire life. You know, I don't want to move, but it needs to go and grow. And I understand in the right direction with the right infrastructure. Thank you for hearing me out.
Okay. Anyone else?
This was well put together. Thank you.
Will,
I just was back here taking a few notes, but the only thing I kept writing down was stormwater and drainage. So if you don't mind, I'll just address that really quickly. The existing neighborhood, Mindenhall neighborhood, I don't know when it was installed. I don't know when it was built. I know it was a long time ago. There's zero retention, detention in the neighborhood. So you may or may not know, but if it's not a community today, local state standards require that we release stormwater from that community at a rate equal to or less than what it was before we got there. And so that's what the engineering calculations have to show. That's what is done in Southpointe Estates, phases 1, 2, and 3. I'm not here to say that nobody's flooding. I have seen the flooding. I know it's there. Town of Somerville staff has been on site a lot of times, and I would really just defer to them if they have an issue with anything that we're doing out there. We have been on site with them multiple times and have done everything that they want us to do. I think the flooding that they're talking about is more of a function of their existing community than it is of a new community. That being said, recognize that there are drainage issues in that neighborhood. And again, I just say that that's something that we don't have a plan right now. We're not far enough along with a plan that we could actually address that, but have spoken with Russ and Bonnie both about that specifically. And their answer to me is, hey, when you get to that point, we're going to make you do whatever you have to. But they actually don't even know anything about Southpointe Estates Road. According to them, they've not been called about that. They've only been called about interior to the community. But, you know, I stand up here and say it again, you know, we'll do whatever we need to. If we did something wrong, we're happy to address that. And there have been items that were our fault in Southpointe that we've addressed because Town of Somerville asked us to do it, and we've done it. If there's anything else left out there, we'll handle whatever we need to get that done, but that's not what they're saying to us.
Do everything you're supposed to do, and we did not flood before.
I just wanted to rebut what he said about all our concerns being irrelevant at this point. I mean, if the place is annexed, we don't have any say in anything. And of course, the things we're talking about are the reasons that we don't want it to be annexed. So it's completely relevant.
okay.
I would like to add on the flooding issue, we had almost no flooding issue when we had the 1,000-year flood. 1,000-year rain, I'm sorry. 6 years ago, 5. Yeah, there's some water in the streets occasionally. The storm sewer got plugged up, but other than that, there was very, very minimal flooding. Fast forward to today, Dan Ryan came in next door. Now we flood. I'm not an engineer. I don't pretend to be. I can tell you what it didn't used to do and what it does now.
Thank you. All
Mr.
right,
Chairman.
with that-
I do have a number of emails that we said we would read into the record. Want me to do that?
Are those the ones that you sent that have been sent to the commission already?
They've been sent to the commission. Jesse sent the vast majority of them. I printed them off. We did state in our response that we would read them into the record.
I think we can safely append them to the record since the commission is already privy to them.
You have all received them, and they all address the same things that have been brought up this afternoon here: traffic, flooding, concern with the character of the neighborhood being altered due to construction of anything at the front. You know, I'm not diminishing what's been said. I just do want to address that, you know, a number of people have taken the time to send that. Mr. Willison sent an email. He spoke. Nancy Hovenar has spoken. We have emails from Aaron Fontenot, Randy Fontenot, Kirk Osgood, Chris Summers, Jerry Burbidge, Jacqueline Poloni, Joe Rogers, Margaret Wheat, Sarah Heath, Richard Bohannon, and Marina Morton, just to address that.
Unless the
those
commissioners
comments.
have an objection, I think we'll just append those.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask if we could have those printed out and attached to the minutes of this meeting as incorporated there. We've all read those and very carefully. Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay. Then with that,
I have what was here, like I said, from David Wilson, Nancy Hovenar. If I missed printing a couple, you know, we received a considerable number. So it isn't that we were trying to miss them, just they were all coming in and we were trying to make sure that they were forwarded to the planning commission, to town council, you know, and staff has taken that into account. So we do have all of those. Do you know how many emails you have? I have 13 here, 12 or 13 total. If I missed some that came in prior to me starting to print those off, that's the number that I have right now.
okay. Then with that being taken care of, we'll close this public hearing. Our next order of business is a public hearing considering the proposed amendments to the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 3, Sections 3.4.2.D.3, Manufactured Housing Design Standards. You want to address that at all, Tim?
Yeah, this came up with an application for a manufactured home that was to be placed in town. The building official informed us that basically the requirements that are in the UDO to address that really can't be done on older manufactured homes. We can't add on to the structure. And that's what would be required based on these. So we came up with the proposed changes concerning the design standards for those to address that.
Right. Okay, is there anybody in the public that wants to address this? Seeing no one rise to the occasion, we'll close this public hearing. And we will go on to I don't think we have any old business on the agenda.
There is none?
Names, road names were on there.
Yeah, we have some, that would be new business, I think. You want to take us back to the agenda?
Yeah, I apologize.
That's all right.
For new business, street names, there's in downtown Nexton, Woodfield 2, three names are needed. They have proposed Bellencourt Drive, Bowling Street, Kenmore Road, and Warburton Drive, Warburton Road. Those are four proposed, and we need three.
Can you get us back to that page on our,
It's
by any chance? Thank you. I move for the last three of those: Bowling Street, Kenmore Road, and Warburton Road. See, Warburton.
I have a motion and a second on the last three. Any discussion? I don't like Bellencourt. Okay. All right. No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. All right. The aforementioned petition by Southpointe Ventures, a South Carolina general partnership to annex Dorchester County, TMS number 13800000015, approximately 15.7 acres located at Southpointe Boulevard and East Fifth North Street, currently zoned TRM, Transitional Residential District in Dorchester County, will be zoned MFR, multifamily residential, upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits in Council District 2. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it for the purpose of putting it open for discussion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think that when you have private property rights such as this, we have to remember this is property that's owned by someone, and we have, in our country, we respect property owners and their rights to do what they will with their property within certain limits. This is a request to join this property into our town, and the request seems to fall within some of the limits that the town has placed on development of property. It also would seem that it would assist the overcrowding in the town by providing homes for people who are going to move here regardless of what we do today. And those people will need affordable housing. The more housing available, the cheaper it is. All those are reasons in favor of this. However, you have to balance that with the existing town, even though some people would accuse some of the people here of wanting to move into an area and then close the doors for others to move in. They have valid concerns with what's going on in their neighborhood, with what's going on with the flooding, what's going on with the traffic, what's going on with the overcrowding and a lot of the issues. And many of those issues are not the town of Somerville's responsibility. We can't control the roads. That's the state road. They've stated they're going to expand it, but the proposal is open for comments for another year, and they won't even begin planning it until 2024. So the construction, the 4 landing of Highway 78 is years down the road. So there'll be no relief for the existing traffic, let alone new additions to the traffic in that area. The flooding is an issue, not only in this community, but many others. Things have changed in our community that's caused this flooding. And I take the developers at their word that they'll protect the wetlands, that they'll protect the great trees and things like that that exist there, as the town will require them to do. However, I think that we need to consider this proposal in light of all of the existing circumstances. And there's nothing that I feel is legally wrong with the proposal. I think it's not the right time to approve this this proposal for this community with the impact it's going to have not only on the Southpointe people, but the rest of Somerville are be affected that. We all have to drive Highway 78, not just the people who live there. We all have to deal with flooding. And if that flooding comes out to Highway 78 or affects EMTs or things like that, it affects all of us. So I am, even though I made a motion to approve it, to put it open for discussion, this is the discussion I wanted to put out there is I don't think this is the right time for this development. I think there will be a right time for it. And I think the developers have a right to do something along that line they have here. I think they should finish what they've already been permitted to do in the back. And once that gets completed, be in the process to evaluate their overall condition better, be able to evaluate their track record better, be able to evaluate the impact of all this better. So for my purposes, I believe, and again, we are only making a recommendation to the town council, and everyone should understand that. They're the ones who will make a final decision. But I will, for my purposes, vote to not approve this at the present time.
Further discussion?
Chairman, I agree
Joe?
with Tom. I had the same opinions before. I've been stuck on 78. I felt like I was back in Boston, so it felt just like that. Tim, on page 21, I believe it is, in 22 of the packet, there was a financial analysis.
Yes, sir.
Who's the author of that? The town?
It is a worksheet that is provided by the town to the developers. We give it to them to fill out with their numbers. Obviously, the town doesn't have their numbers and their information regarding it. I do want to say that in regards to that there is probably not a single family residential development that pays its own way when it comes to taxes collected versus the services provided. But in using this form, it does allow us to be able to review what is proposed versus what is potentially going to be brought in. So.
Well, the developer doesn't want to sell the houses for less than it costs to keep it. We're collecting less in the long term. It's almost like we're probably more bigger commercial someplace.
Well, truthfully, what pays
We need
for
industrial.
most of the services is commercial and industrial zoning. And we don't have a whole lot of industrial within the town of Somerville. We are a vast majority single-family residential style community.
So at some point in my lifetime, we'll reach the tipping point.
We reached it a long time.
Anyone else?
Well, I appreciate all of the comments and emails. I would like to point out that in several of the emails, there were already statements made, such as there not being developments approved in front of other neighborhoods, which is not true. Pine Forest Country Club area was recently approved for townhomes at the entrance to its subdivision. They are currently being built. Flooding has been an issue. More so lately in town. I have property that did not flood 40 years ago, except once a year perhaps. Now it floods many times a year, and I don't live anywhere near Southpointe. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are both true facts and erroneous facts in some of the emails. But they've all been read and your comments have been taken in.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd like just to add that the traffic down 78 is horrific. I mean, it's just terrible, you know?
It's terrible all over.
I know it is. I know it is, but I just feel like even though Southpointe Estates, has that turn-in lane that's going to take place someday, and that would be acceptable for this development. I just feel like, getting out of Southpointe is impossible, especially during high peak traffic. Seems like the traffic, the intersection there could warrant having a light for the Southpointe residents. And I don't know if there's,
It takes forever to get that. Briarwood and Iron took forever to get it on Trolley Road. Unfortunately, sometimes DOT waits until there have been several catastrophes.
yeah.
DOT would prefer to not have a light there because they want to keep traffic moving on 78,
Which it doesn't anyway.
but it
Doesn't make any
precludes adding traffic from other places.
But I do agree with Tom. It seems a little ill-timed. I think some of these things need to catch up first before we can really consider what to do with this property.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion to approve this and send it on to council, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign? No.
No,
No.
I think it's unanimous by the commission that we will send it. It will go forward to the council, but it will go forward with our recommendation that it not be done. Next order of business is the amendment, proposed amendment to Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 3, Section 3.4.2.D.3, Manufactured Housing Design Standards. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Steve, this allows existing manufactured homes to meet the requirements of the ordinance. Is that what it is?
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to meet it with the requirements as they stand, so it's making it so that
So it's easier for existing homeowners to meet that.
yes, okay.
I'm in favor of it.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? So, and I think that concludes our business for the day.
I move to adjourn.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So.